when I see a man be a coward in the truth, in just speaking the truth, or sticking up for what's right, especially today in America with everything going on, I'm like, those are not men.
To me, I'm a male, okay?
Okay.
What are you, so I can call you a sir or ma'am? What are you?
What would you assume looking at me?
What are you?
What would you assume looking at me?
Assumption is the mother of all fuck-ups.
I assume that you're a man. Okay? Okay?
Thank you, whatever.
It's not easy being a transgender woman. People sometimes ask, do you feel 100% like a woman? And I say, well, if you've talked to one transgender person, you've talked to exactly one transgender person. I feel 100% like a transgender woman. There are things a cisgender woman knows I will never know.
I've seen trans women that make me believe that I've come across a lot of women, that were transgender. What they were born as seems to be the reason they receive all of that hate. The reality is, some men aren't secure in themselves, so the smallest of things seem highly offensive to them. If you weren't a Christian, you'd hate Christians. If you weren't a woman, you'd hate women. If you hurt a transgender person because they are transgender, you have more issues than you think they have.
Somebody come and look at this. Look at this.
Abortion, $600. Plan B, $60. Condoms, $6. Being with a trans, free. You decide. Well, don't get mad when we say hell to the no. My issue with transgenders is my ignorance. I do not like having all this in front of my son, nieces, or nephew's face. But you know what? I do have to understand that it is our hate that created their agenda. People brutalizing transgenders in the streets because they are transgender is insane and will always be insane. Because of that BS, they are now overcorrecting. Their agenda won't keep my son from being who he is destined to be. I remind my boy God loves him and everyone on earth. And I also remind him he's a boy. So to the transgender activists that think I'm wrong for assigning his gender, if I didn't and the school introduced all of that to him.
Houston, we have a problem.
This transgender chick and her friend walked into a restaurant at midnight and tried to use the restroom.
And an attendant from the restroom asked to see my ID. They didn't ask anybody else. And when I asked why, they said it's because I have to have female on my ID in order to access the restroom. That's wrong, but, first of all, and second of all, I'm not going to show my ID to use the restroom.
I understand the inconvenience of having to be the only person to constantly show ID. It's extremely uncomfortable, but the safety of my child would supersede your comfort. There's no way I would feel comfortable with an individual that looks like you in a restroom with my young daughter. Sorry, but I would absolutely discriminate. I understand the counter argument though. Beside it being illegal to demand they show ID, why do we assume she would be a bigger risk to our children over another woman? With people kidnapping kids, why is she more of a threat than another woman? And I will answer that because I'm highly qualified to speak on it. It's because you was born a male. Nobody trusts males. Wait. Transgenders are allowed to bully back. So she
went back inside, went straight to him, and asked him to read it. He did, and he said that's incorrect. I still don't, think that you're allowed to use the restroom. I gave him one more chance. I said that I work for the Human Rights Campaign. I need you to make a course correction right now because this is about to get very bad. And you need to understand the way that laws work in DC in regards to the LGBTQ community.
The cops agreed with her, but she was still kicked out and treated like trash.
I mean, trans, but I'm straight. I mean, I'm into you, baby, so like...
Wait, you're into straight or?
Straight, preferably, but I go with a trans.
But I'm not. So you're into me? You think I'm trans?
Nah, I think you're straight.
I'm so confused.
But you're passable.
What does that mean?
You're acceptable. You make the cut.
Does that mean you think I'm trans?
Yeah. In my eyes. Bust down.
We are telling boys that they are literally girls if they identify as girls.
Do we end up with literally nobody in the future identifying as male and female?
Well,
what does that do?
maybe.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that what we're seeing is children expressing or experimenting with their gender, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Gender fluidity to me is, I think it's a farce, personally, right? I think you...
That's your own bigoted opinion.
I don't think it's bigoted.
It is absolutely
I don't think it's bigoted. But, people who decide one day they're male, next day they're female, next day back to male, I think it's ridiculous.
That's because you're a cis straight man.
Maybe, or maybe I'm right. And it's ridiculous.
Maybe you're not.
Well,
have you thought about
what
that?
makes you, with your own self-righteousness, think you're right all the time about this
Not
stuff?
self-righteous. I'm standing up for people.
I have
that
warned
deserve
for
to be
ages that
standing
I
up
think
for.
this is the way things are going to go. And here we have
Well,
76
what are you so
kids in one
scared of?
school.
What are you so scared of if this is
I'm
the way
scared
that it's going?
that common
What is
societal
so bad
norm.
about being gender
These
non-conforming?
kids are 11 to 16. I've had 4 kids, right? 3 have gone through that age group, through puberty. They change wildly.
And what would you do if you had a gender-neutral child or a gender non-conforming, non-binary
I'd say,
child?
I would say to them, what does this mean? What do you mean gender fluid? What do you
Would
mean
you
by
support
that?
them?
But more importantly,
Would you support them?
I would not encourage it.
Would you support them, though?
No, but if they carried on over years saying to me, I was born in the wrong sex...
that's probably what's happening. They're
It's
not
not-
just...
it's not
no,
what's
but
happening.
No, you don't know that.
What we are talking about is not supporting children in gender non-conformity. We are changing that gender non-conformity to conform to sex stereotypes of the opposite sex.
This British single mother who more than likely uses the hashtag #KillAllMen is raising her son as a girl. She gets away with it by saying she is raising him gender fluid. You may be wondering where the boy's father is. Yes, he's in his son's life. She claims they decided to
actively promote a child that would be exposed to everything for him to choose exactly what he wanted to be.
I'm sure he has no voice. The viewers of Britain's Best Parent notice he only has girl things, from clothing to toys, even though she claims she's raising him fluid. What's interesting is if you let her talk long enough, you'll hear that she doesn't have a positive opinion about males.
I personally find that many aspects of girls are way more positive than what is traditionally associated with boys and men.
She should be arrested because her parenting style is torture and abuse. That boy will harm this world because of her.
In year 7, which is the start of secondary school, do you identify with the gender you assigned at birth? So we are leading children into thinking, do I identify? Oh, actually, I've got some interest. But the problem is that there is only a medical pathway for children. So whereas lobby groups are campaigning for a demedicalisation of transgender for the Gender Recognition Act and for it to be unrelated to gender dysphoria, with children, the same lobby groups are campaigning for earlier and earlier medicalisation. There's no long-term research. We do not know the effects of these drugs. Blockers have been used and experimented on children before animals. Trials on sheep now are showing worrying results with the brain that even when you stop blockers, do not return.
This next story is from my hometown, New Jeru. I know y'all heard of Demi Minor. She's the 27-year-old transgender woman that impregnated 2 women at Edna Mahan, the only women's prison in New Jersey. Being that Edna Mahan is the only facility exclusive to women, they transported Demi to a male facility. This entire process is dangerous for both women and trans women. The problem with the current process is a lot of men will identify as a woman just so they can avoid being locked up with other men. If a man harmed my family and claimed he identified as a woman and was sentenced to a bed with women, I would become a villain, and that would be terrible for this world. So what do y'all recommend?
Yo soy muy mal educado, mano. Extraño. ¿Cómo te llamas tú? Papi, Fabián Guerrero. Amor mío, ¿y cómo te llamas tú?
Miguel.